we have with us Mr. Saurav Majumdar, Senior Manager, Global AI Accelerator, Ericsson. Saurav Majumdar brings 18 years of extensive experience across telecom, gaming, and retail industries. Throughout his career, he has held various leadership positions within the field of data science and artificial intelligence. His experience includes overseeing global delivery teams, establishing AI centers of excellence, and delivering advanced AI products. Next, we have here with us Mr. Anand Kumar, EVP Engineering, Bharti Airtel Limited. Anant leads Airtel's digital engineering organization as CIO Digital and has over 22 years of experience in banking and telecom sectors, specializing in software engineering, architecture, and consulting. He's played a pivotal role in establishing Airtel's digital engineering capabilities and is currently driving key initiatives related to platform charters, artificial intelligence, and generative AI within the company. Next, we have Mr. Abhishek Shukla, Director Enterprise Service Provider Strategic Sales India, Southeast Asia, and Korea, Red Hat. Abhishek is a director with Red Hat and has 20 years of experience in sales and business development across various industries. He has a strong background in solution selling, CXO management, and strategic planning. He holds an MBA from University of Queensland Business School in Marketing, Finance, and Strategy. Next, we have Mr. Himanshu Gupta, Country Manager, Telecom Media and Entertainment, HPE India. In his current role, based out of Gurgaon, Mr. Himanshu is working as a country manager and he is leading a team that drives strategy and business for telco and other customers in the vertical. In his last few roles as a country manager, he has driven country sales for key accounts, mid-markets, manufacturing and ITES segment, competitive acquisition engine. Next, we have with us Mr. Rakesh Vij, founder and CEO, True Minds. Mr. Rakesh is the founder and the CEO of True Minds Software Systems. He is an industry veteran who has served as the CBO at Ericsson, now Capgemini Engineering, and was responsible for $400 million of P&L for telecommunications business, which involves working with leading equipment providers and service providers. Welcome, sir. Next, we have with us Mr. Karthik Murthy, Senior Manager, Media Tech. Karthik is a passionate and dedicated mobile internet services go-to-market professional with more than 14 years of experience in product marketing, product sourcing, product management, training, and business development disciplines in Asia-Pacific region. Karthik has taken sole ownership of product management, ODM relationships, and go-to-market programs for smartphones, feature phones, and innovative categories across various chipsets products offered in India, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. We also have Mr. Milind Desai, Associate Director, Strategy and Consulting, Accenture in India, with over 16 years of experience in AI, data, and analytics. Milind is a seasoned strategy consultant leading Accenture's AI function for retail, life sciences, CMT, automotive in India. He's worked with clients across these industries, helping develop their enterprise-level platforms, designing and building AI algorithms, and cloud infrastructure solutions. We now welcome our moderator for the session, Ms. Sonika Bajaj, Partner Markets, KPMG India. Sonika is a partner in our clients and markets team, focusing on the TMT sector and leads the TMT EMA Center of Excellence for KPMG globally. With over 24 years of experience in audit, deal consulting, and market functions, Sonika has worked with various clients in the TMT space, aiding their strategic and operational initiatives. Welcome, everyone, and over to you, Sonika. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, to start with, let me first thank IMC for inviting and hosting us, and I'll say that on behalf of my entire panel, for giving us an opportunity to talk on such an interesting topic. I think that has kind of revolutionized the way we live, we play, we do business. And while AI has been in the play for quite some time, I think the way it has been revolutionized and kind of democratized through Gen AI, it's phenomenal. And I think I mean, if I may not be wrong by just estimating for the number of times that AI and Gen AI has been discussed since yesterday, it just demonstrates how important the topic is. And clearly, with llamas and Geminis and Chat GPTs on our phone, clearly we are seeing practical use cases that are being developed. That are kind of democratizing AI for everyone. So I mean, I think today's focus with such an esteemed panel over here, we want to kind of get insights on how is AI shaping up as a reality for Indian telcos, the telecom business. How and what has been the journey of the adoption in India specifically. We'll leverage on some global experiences as well, and what's the roadmap ahead for companies who are kind of trying to take this to scale. What's the roadmap that they should follow? So with that, maybe I'll start off with the panel, and sort of given your global role, we would be very keen on understanding how do you see Gen AI shaping up business models. Is it a reality? Is it a hype? Maybe some insights on that. And also, is there any differentiation that you see between the global markets and Indian markets?
Thanks, Sonika, and thanks the audience for assembling here. I think the first question is a little controversial when we still say that Gen AI is a hype. Let me try to basically give my perspective, and while I do that, I'll try to look at this question in multiple angles. Okay, so this morning, there was one slide. I think it was still there during the lunch session as well, which says that 20% of Gen AI, POCs are getting into production. It's good. Business may or may not agree. Some people actually have a different point of view. But I think, a technology which was kind of incubating for 3-4 years, and, with the inflection point of Chat GPT coming in the November of 2022, and if you just see, it's almost 2 years, and there has been a cycle of learning, there's a cycle of experimentation, cycle of adoption. I think the 20% is a good number. But is our definition of Gen AI only limited to large language models? So if we see, in last, I think these were basically under development for some time, but in last 1.5 years, we are actually seeing a new facet of LLMs coming forward, which is called the LMM. So we are in the age of LMM, or we'll be getting into the age of LMM in next year. So for everyone's reference, LMM is large multimodal models. Okay, so where we look at the input beyond the texts, and also what is enabling right now is LLMs are I think they are to a controversial extent successful. I'll say they are actually a large number of things still has to be done. They have to be adopted in the individual enterprises, individual telco context. So that are being done right now. So there's still a way to go, but I think we are beyond the hype cycle. So some of the use cases that are being at least being driven by LLMs, whether it is to do with talking to your own data, whether it is basically searching or doing information retrieval from your documents, doing troubleshooting based on that. Okay, so those use cases are more to be seen. They're more to be seen because large part of those use cases are actually getting into production, getting whether it is getting monetized, that we have to see. But at least there is an appetite for people to take it to their end customers. For at least in our context, we actually have started seeing some of these activities from large language model getting into our products and services. This is initial stages, but we have still a lot to go. But as I was mentioning, what is the next step? We are talking about multimodal, so we are talking about agents. So we have they are good. They are actually wherever LLM fails or wherever LLM actually has a constraint, these additional modalities, looking into it actually helps a lot. And then, but is that all? Okay, so, there will be, more use cases around reasoning, more use cases around kind of reasoning across all these modalities. That's where we will get more than what we have right now. So as I was talking, some of the use cases that you spoke about global versus India. So at least I'll just speak at a very generic level. Okay, in terms of the work that we are seeing right now. So in terms of network, in GenAI getting adapted into network. So we actually using LLMs. We have seen some of the use cases where people are talking to various network databases to do troubleshooting. There are a lot of different network automation activities happening. Simulations can be done using GenAI, especially with multimodal coming in, with time series and images getting involved. So these use cases are going to get more and more focused on. And then we actually have everyone's favorite, which I think is also bugging a lot of developers, and because India's IT service industry depends a lot on these developers. So there, in terms of code generation, coding assistants, we are seeing this technology getting adopted a lot. But is it? But can we use it for doing production grade coding? We haven't seen it yet. There might be some pockets, but not seen it yet. But there are certain steps being taken right now. Example, I was talking about agents right now. So we need to basically look forward to this technology. Explore this technology so that we can actually have better. We actually can actually have more like a production grade code written right now. Otherwise, you ask a LLM to generate a Fibonacci series in a Python, it will do it. But you basically feed in production code, it doesn't have the context size, it doesn't actually have the domain knowledge to basically generate a code which can be easily used for any actual product development activity. So in terms of India, I just spoke. I think there had been certain activities that at least from academic perspective, we actually have seen some of the IITs and in some of the other institutes also, they're actually working on the multilingual part.
I think there's some point of views that I think that some of these other gentlemen are also wanting to cover. So I think maybe Anant, I think given Bharti Airtel has been kind of dabbling with Gen AI, a lot of POCs happening. So what's your experience been in terms of the value add that Gen AI has been added for specifically for telcos, and given your engineering background, how from a software development, from a product development perspective, how do you see the value add being delivered by Gen AI?
So I think we have recently started using Microsoft's Copilot, and what I have discovered is that there is a learning curve that people have to go through, right? Because many times you're not writing a code from scratch. You are trying to do something in the existing code. And at times, the large language model or the Copilot doesn't understand the entire context and can generate a wrong code as well. So while there is a lot of potential, normal job that takes almost 2-3 days to do, you can do in few minutes. We have seen that happening. But primarily it is being used for things like test case generation, formatting, things like that. So it's a very nascent stage. But the tools are developing really fast. So we can see tools like Microsoft GitHub Enterprise Server, which basically finds all the vulnerabilities in your code. So I think just like the advancement of the tooling, which has happened over a period of time, in software development, there are many IDEs. I think this Microsoft's Copilot or anything more tools are coming in are going to come into mainstream. In terms of product development, one aspect is obviously coding, but it is also about, can we generate product specifications, or can we generate an application from a product specification, right? So there are some experimentations there going on. How do we generate a document, a low-level design document, things like that. So we are just experimenting with those.
Thank you so much. So Abhishek, if I may move on, networks is a critical component of a telco business, right? So, and that's where a lot of effort in terms of the deployment, in terms of maintenance, in terms of enhancement. How do you see Gen AI play a role in some of these initiatives that are so critical for a telco business?
Thank you. Thank you. So, pleasure being here, firstly. I think I'll begin by firstly maybe taking a stab at the question you asked about Gen AI hype or a reality. I believe that we are going through the curve, right? And at the end of the day, if you compare from a global to an India context, I think we are kind of catching up. Okay, if you look at some of the reports like from ENY, they believe that Gen AI is kind of here to stay for India. It is supposed to grow at a 40% CAGR from now up to 2030, which is going to be a significant value add to the GDP of India. And one of the things that it brings, Gen AI, is benefits across all industries, and telcos are not far away. From a telco perspective, if you see, networks are a critical piece. It's basically their heartbeat. However, they are highly complex. Why do I say that? Is a small sounding issue like I don't have network could essentially mean an underlying issue which runs right from core to radio to transport to routing, so on and so forth, right? So these networks essentially are complex, they are diverse, heterogeneous, and multi-vendor, right? So solving these challenges within networks is very imperative for the operators. Hence, they are focusing more and more on applying Gen AI for network ops. From our experience, what we've seen in the industry when we're talking to operators across the globe, one of the primary use case that comes into play, and it could be rephrased in any other way that they want, is something like a knock engineering chatbot, right? Telcos are consistently trying to make sure they are able to reduce the RCA for their customers, and because there is there's an issue with the mic. Yeah. So consistently trying to see means and ways to improve their RCA because that's how we're going to bring better customer experience. And this is a classic use case wherein you can bring the AI ops and Gen AI together to solve this problem of operational efficiency, right? We've seen that operators already have several AI ops solutions in place that generate a lot of contextual data, which is both, you can say, diagnostic and predictive events. This data, we believe, some of the operators are effectively using to do two things. First, and this is what I've heard from one of the operators in India, what they've done is they've used this AI ops data, coupled it with all the manuals that they have from their vendors, ingested this data into an LLM, right? So imagine the amount of cross-reference this LLM model is going to do. And NOC engineers then are effectively able to use and query their challenges and understand logs and analysis much better effectively in a human-like interaction model and arrive at a faster RCA. The second is going one step ahead. So if you're able to convert this AI ops data into prompts and with event-driven KPIs, and if you pass this on to an LLM, and the LLM gives you an outcome of something like a playbook for execution, this playbook can effectively be triggered onto the network to do something we called as closed loop assurance, right? So this is like making the network autonomous or self-healing in a way, right? We're working with global standard bodies. We're working with also TM Forum, right, to do something similar with also the operators in play and our ecosystem, so that we are able to bring this out to the market and people are able to effectively do this. for themselves.
These are some real innovations that are coming in from a network perspective. Moving on, I mean, we're talking about innovations, but at the same point of time, I think there's certain nuances that we need to kind of keep in mind, when it comes to AI in general. With this whole aspect of responsible AI, how do you remove biases from AI, and how do you manage some of the aspects around security and all? So maybe I'll move to you to kind of just understand your perspective, and how do you think industries are kind of now managing some of these issues?
You would have heard Jeffrey Hinton getting the Nobel award for Nobel Prize for physics, and he's basically a guy who has invented, one of the co-inventors of AI in a way. Now it's very surprising why a guy should get a prize which is for physics. But that is a level of impact. But something more has happened. Last year he left Google, and he said he's leaving because he feels this is not something which is very good for humans. Why? He felt this can actually overpower humans. It can actually lead to some very dramatic results, not in the short run, but in the long run. Because this has got the ability to think, it has got the ability to do things which is very, very unknown today. How these deep neural networks work, basis these so-called backward propagation algorithms, which he himself developed. He says we don't just know. So there are layers of networks called nodes. They form hidden sort of a mesh. And these vector databases with matrix multiplication using the GPUs, they're able to do something the way human mind works. So it's very, very innovative stuff. Now, when he can say that he's leaving this and he's raising ethical standards, I think it's a very, very important point to be considered. And I would possibly say to overcome these regulatory issues or bringing regulations around it, for 5 important areas we have to consider. It has to be a mix of moral standards, some regulatory frameworks, and also some technology advances. To start with, I think first is about having a framework for ethical AI. And when I say framework, it means you have to start the journey not in fragmented manner, but in a manner wherein you treat AI as a whole soul journey for you. It's a life cycle. And as a company, whether it is a telco or enterprises, you have to literally plan for it from day one. I'll give a very simple example. One of the European vendors, and we can name it, Telefonica, started the AI journey by having responsible AI framework in 2018. Okay? And as things progressed, as the EU regulation came in 23, regulation actually came, it became an act only 2 months back. But all this came, they improved it. And from the basic, levels of governance, they got in human element, they got sustainability. A lot of these things as part of their framework. And now there's a governing model for them. Like that in India, I think everybody is looking forward to the regulations coming in. So first is about having the right ability to do this piece. Second is about responsibility in terms of having transparency, in terms of having ability to trace back into how the algorithm is building the output, right? It is called as traceability. So if LLM is deployed, but you don't know how it is coming, if you're not able to literally go back to the data sets and verify, it can lead to hallucinations. And I think everybody knows hallucination is the ability of the LLM to create content which is maybe wrong, which is illegal, which is misrepresentation or just construed. So these are some very, very important elements. Third piece could be around security, and the security frameworks can be handled in several ways. One example is about red teaming, in which you try and simulate the security vulnerabilities in an LLM model and try and troubleshoot basis the outputs. So that is one of the mechanisms, but security becomes of paramount importance, and there are various ways to manage it. Fourth could be around regulations. So European Union has actually passed a regulation now, and if you look at the way it has been done, it has been possibly in a very, very fast manner. In fact, US has also got its own act together now, and they have released. So regulation is one, and every enterprise, telco or otherwise, have to follow regulations. They should have internal AI councils. They can have a team of experts managing all of it as something which is very, very fundamental to developing an LLM. And finally, it comes to, I would say, collaboration between vendors, ecosystem partners, between researchers, academicians, and the industry and all have to come together and see that the development cycle is managed very, very well. So these 5, 6 areas are very important, and I think that will form the basis of responsible ethical AI. That's how it will.
Thank you so much, Himanshu. I think those are some very relevant insights that everybody needs to kind of keep in mind in terms of how do we develop a responsible AI framework before we even think of Gen AI use cases. More so because the way it's being democratized, the utilization of Gen AI is not limited to a particular department. It is now practically with every user. So moving on, Rakesh, I mean, I think once we have some of these frameworks in place, obviously, Gen AI, from a telco perspective, also kind of enables providing newer solutions for across sectors in different industries. So maybe it will be good to have your perspective on how Gen AI is shaping other industries beyond telco, which maybe telcos can take as an offering to some of these sectors and their clients.
Thank you, Sonika. First of all, look at the market size, right? Why Gen AI is so exciting. And I Googled it today. This year, worldwide, Gen AI is around $17 billion. Out of that, telecom is close to 300 million. So we are talking about 2% in telecom out of the overall Gen AI market. But the exciting thing about Gen AI is it's actually growing at a CAGR of 45%. I mean, so, this is where it is actually really growing. And that is where the excitement, comes from. Various use cases, writing an article, for example, I'm sure at night when I sit and I'll be tired, I don't want to write. I'll use one of the agents to kind of write an article about my participation in LinkedIn today. And it's just going to be a 2-minute job and I'm going to edit it. But this is passé, right? I mean, this is something which has been there for some time. Some of the very exciting use cases which we are working across industry, and telecom happens to be the backbone because that's where the calls happen, that's where the recordings are there, and so on. So we work with the TPA, which actually, when you take an insurance, so they record, your medical history, your family history, and so on. And this recording and whatever the parameters recorded goes to the insurance company. Now, if there is a claim tomorrow, the liability is with the TPA and not the insurance company because they are the one recorded. And invariably, they do, these are doctors who are recording, so you can understand the drudgery. They do a shit job. So whatever they've recorded is actually very bad. So they go through another round by a doctor who kind of verifies whether the first doctor has recorded correctly or not. So what we did was we used Gen AI to kind of compare between the recording and the transcription. And we found out the errors were reduced to nearly negligible now. One of the use cases, one of the actual examples was where the doctor has recorded the person doesn't have any eye injury. And, he asked the question, do you have any eye problem and so on? He said, no. And during the conversation, he asked whether you had a surgery. He said, I had a cornea surgery. And LLM kind of find out what the difference between the two was, which to a human person who had recorded that person didn't have an eye problem at all. Another use case, we are actually working with one of the security and surveillance bodies of India. So they actually follow, they have a huge team which follows tweets, certain Twitter handles, certain hashtags, from a neighboring country or China and so on. And it's a fairly manual job. What we're actually trying to build up system where we can ingest those tweets from Twitter and kind of provide them a summary, on a daily basis. I was actually surprised last week. I was called by FICCI and ASSOCHAM. So they had a conference on taxation. And one of the panel discussions like this, and 1 hour dedicated to this, was how Gen AI can help in taxation. From a personal perspective, life would be so easy. I give them my bank statement, my capital gains, my mutual fund or whatever, and it should able to give me a tax, summary for the year. So very soon, and it would able to give me all my liabilities over the years and so on. It is still far away, but very much on the horizon. And I was surprised, people in taxation are talking about Gen AI, and there was a lot of excitement around it. One very last interesting use case, and this is, I've been quoting this for last 3-4 weeks. Our RFP came to us, so from a a Baba in UP. So he has around 1.5 million followers. I mean, he's expired. So they have an app, right? So his followers actually follow the Baba through his app. And they had a RFP to kind of say that every day at 6 a.m., depending on your persona, the favorite teachings of Baba would be displayed to you. I mean, so it would, come recorded or SMSs and so on. And they also had a requirement where you could ask Baba the question like the way you would have asked him. So we have ingested all these videos, these YouTube shorts, and Instagram videos. And you kind of asking him a question, Baba, I'm feeling stressed. What should I do? So the LLM is supposed to play that part of the recording where he says, do meditation, eat less, whatever it is. But I mean, this is a different example, but very classic case. Somebody in UP sitting off, using GenAI and kind of, trying to solve this problem. So first of all, GenAI is there and it is there to stay. It is going to impact all industries, all functions for sure. And that is why we all are discussing this interesting topic.
When we talk about the other side of the spectrum, especially when users needs to interact with GenAI, right? These are the devices such as smartphones, IoT, VR, AR, and so on. So what happens is there are significant use cases. One of them is, of course, taking down meeting notes, discussing or translation, traveling to multiple countries. Today you'll have to deal with multiple times on searching on one question to exactly an answer to a similar one, and if you connect the second question, it would be irrelevant. With GenAI, it would understand, it will have all those intelligence in what context, what relevance that you guys are talking about, and based on that, it can value add to it. Not only that, especially when it comes to smartphones, you will have multiple apps to work on. How to prioritize. There are whole lot of WhatsApp chat these days. Can you get a summarized one? Can all the WhatsApp messages can be read and given a short form? Or you have multiple emails, extremely large emails, or if you can summarize that, or even as my colleague, my friend also talked about. Some of the RFPs, these are significant number of pages, right? So it can also be summarized and so on. Image search. Everybody are taking a lot of images these days, right? How do you search those images? I mean, you don't recall those time and date and place. I mean, you can just, of course, talk about those colors. I was wearing this or this location and so on. Image search and translation, document writing, reviewing, there are a lot of use cases. Not just on the devices, even on when it comes to VR devices, combining with augmented reality and so on. With all these devices, hardware in place, GenAI can definitely have a personalized, have its inputs on the edge, basically. Although it's a long way to go, but then we'll have a number of use cases. Quite frankly, every 5 years, technology changes. We really don't know what comes, what are the sort of challenges that we face every 5 years, right? So every 5 years, the challenges sort of varies. But GenAI can definitely shorten that particular solution that we come out with. So of course, all these devices will certainly play a big role.
Thank you so much. I think a lot of use cases that we've kind of discussed, which can be deployed at scale to kind of to revolutionize businesses across sectors. But just moving on, Milind, would be very keen to understand your perspective on how some of these use cases that we talked about, can be actually now taken to full scale. We talked about a lot of POCs. How are there any specific drivers that need to be kind of considered to move from POC to production stage?
Thanks, Anika. I mean, that's being the last person on the block, it's not going to be easy for me to answer this anyways. Most of you guys have covered it. But I mean, look, the way we at least operate with our clients. Uh, 2022, somebody said ChatGPT came in. We are sitting in the end of 2024. Why are we talking use cases, right? Let's move away from this hurdle of use cases in the first place. Everybody has tried ChatGPT at your homes. If you have not yet, I mean, make your ChatGPT write a test paper for your kid, and you will trust that. I mean, then start trusting ChatGPT for your enterprise also, right? So first thing, move away from use cases. We talk about something in Accenture as total enterprise reinvention, right? And drive TER, which is total enterprise reinvention through generative AI, right? What does it stand for? Don't look at use cases, look at functions, look at enterprise as a whole. I'll take the example of, I mean, something which is very specific when it comes to customer experience in the telco world, right? There are many use cases in isolation. I mean, somebody talked about a Baba writing an RFP, asking for an RFP just to tell you, okay, show me what content should be published at 6 o'clock. This can be applied to every customer. How many of us, I mean, are Vodafone customers, Airtel customers, Jio customers? How many of us actually get a personalized email every day morning or every month, once in some time, right? Campaign activation, campaign personalization, and creating content for that is the whole realm of generative AI. Not only that, this is the front end that the customer sees. At the back end, all of this, which is content that is getting created, has to be stored in something called as a digital asset manager, DAM, right? A DAM, if it is not very good, it will be really damn it, right? Because you can't search, then you can't figure out what content to apply to whom. So content labeling also is a generative AI use case, right? Now look at it as a comprehensive function transforming customer experience. Don't look at it as individual use cases. Of course, there are use cases in that. You are writing a content, you are generating images, you are creating personalizations, you are creating customer cohorts, you are applying a cohort to a customer content mapping. Then you are doing the searchability and the findability of the customer content that has been created. Take all of this as a whole and say, look, I'm going to use generative AI to drive reinvention in a telco world for a customer experience transformation, which will give me 10% growth. Now that is something that needs to be done. Attach KPIs and people behave the way they are measured. This is the mantra of every one of us. I work because I'm getting my salary. My salary is attached to what I'm supposed to deliver. Attach that to an enterprise. Let 10% growth be delivered through a generative AI. Everybody will start adopting it. Everybody will start scaling it. So I spoke about enterprise reinvention. I spoke about KPIs attached to it. And necessary, the third most important factor is, if this has to be made real, you need to have technology and platform supporting the whole world of enterprise reinvention. I mean, be it the GPUs that you may want to put in, be it the entire vector databases that you want to put in, select your cloud, select the platforms that you want to put up on that cloud, select your vector databases, select your LLMs. Today there are model playgrounds that are available, right? Forget ChatGPT. I mean, the whole GPT family, the llamas, the Google notebooks. I mean, there is a model playground that is available. It itself will decide what model to use at the back end, but that is technology that is paramount. And you get to do this. So you combine the power of KPIs, you combine the power of people who will adopt it, you combine the power of enterprise reinvention. That is your answer to scale. Yeah.
Brilliant. I think reinvention is the possibility, and great mantras for that. So I think a related question to that, maybe Saurabh, to you. Again, there are different elements around making AI a success. So there is data is a critical component. Having reliable data pipelines are an important aspect of having good generative AI adoption. Alignment of business and tech strategies is a very important aspect. So how do you see, what is your perspective on how does an organization achieve some of these aspects?
Yeah, I would rather summarize everyone's point and then put it into a chat GPT, and it will give a better answer than what I'm going to say now. But let me take an attempt at it. So when you're talking about deployment strategies, making Gen AI possible, Gen AI a reality. First of all, I think to most of the organizations, most of the people, I'll say that first decouple AI from Gen AI. Okay, right now we are calling everything as a Gen AI. Okay, so let's first decouple that. Second is basically see whether your problem needs a Gen AI intervention or not. Okay, how do you do it? There is no standards out there. Okay, so the third thing is basically how do you then combine all the elements that Milit was saying, the compute, the data. There are challenges there, in terms of is your data too sensitive to be on to be used on a Gen AI. Sensitiveness is not only the the privacy part of the data, but using the data, is there a chance of getting hallucinated results or garbage results from Gen AI? And that's where the responsible AI, trustworthy AI is going to come in. Okay, then we actually have compute. So understand what is your requirement. Most of us in the enterprise, we are not going building a foundation model is not required unless there is something very, very specific with your data that you cannot sustain on the foundation model that is already there, which the llamas, the the GPTs, the clouds of the world has built. Then you basically go and build your own foundation model. It's very costly affair. Okay, it takes a lot of data. A lot of enterprise might not have it. If you have it, good luck. The second is rather than taking this whatever pre-trained models out there, try to fine tune it. Okay, so this can be one of the strategies. Okay, so also identify where you want to develop it. Okay, is it your requirement at the edge? It will actually have a different ways to move forward. Is it actually at HCPs or the cloud? It will actually have a different way to move forward. Okay, so think like it just like a traditional AI stack that we actually have. We have compute, we have data, we have policies governing the data and the compute. Then we actually have different pipelines, flows, workflows out there, and then we have the use case layer. So it is more or less remains the same, but yes, LLM ops is becoming is little nuanced as compared to typical ML ops. Someone was actually mentioning about SecOps. ML SecOps will actually have LLM SecOps or AI SecOps as well. So and then as I was mentioning, in last point, I think whether you want to basically do all this thing yourself, build it, or you want to basically buy it, from a different vendor. So the make versus buy ROI should be, what the business should be thinking about.
Some very important considerations to deploy AI successfully. Anand, if I may kind of again move from a hands-on telco experience, Gen AI has also been increasingly used for enhancing customer experience. What has been your experience in terms of have we been able to kind of make that radical change through some of these Gen AI adoptions in this area of customer experience?
Yeah, I think initially when we started, I think every organization has to go through that FOMO of we are missing out something. And most of the times we'll end up building voice bots, chatbots, because we think that solves the experience. As a customer, I don't think I like to talk to a voice bot. That doesn't solve the problem. What solves the problem is if I'm waiting on an IVR and I'm waiting for some time so that I get to talk to somebody and then solve my problem. If I'm able to reduce that time, that will help a good customer experience. And in that sense, to reduce that time, if I'm able to use generative AI, it could be instead of asking the customers to ask their query or give their entire problem in one go, I'm able to summarize and I'm able to give a response back. That is going to help me in the customer experience. Second thing is about from a customer lens, if I go to my online properties, and many times you are on an app, you are not able to discover what you are looking for. And how can I then give an experience I know from a customer's interaction and things that are happening in my data, able to analyze and give a personalized view to the customer. Very simple example, many customers raise queries on bill. They don't understand their bill, it's complex sometimes. And then they will call up the call center. Can generative AI help me in this area to customer can ask query and I can answer basis the data which is available, right? So these are some of the thoughts that we have. And obviously then it's not about only query and complaint, it's also about service. Customer wants to install a broadband connection and I have to send an agent to his house. How does that agent does the job right? An agent also needs to follow certain guidelines, procedures, steps, guided principle. Can I auto-generate basis a customer's problem, that SOP or an MOP, and then solve the customer's problem so that it does not get repeated? I am able to reliably send an engineer, he does the job right, and then there is no repeat. The customer does not complain. I think these are the things fundamentally that we are now looking at, and then if generative AI use case fits in, that's where we start including it. And that's the strategy that we are following.
Thank you, Anand. Abhishek, we talked about, I think, some of the challenges around security and responsible AI. But are there other aspects also that organizations need to keep in mind? I mean, skill sets could be or business alignment. What are the challenges that you were seeing your clients face in adopting Gen AI?
Well, as industry, I think I will begin with some stats, right? As per some of the TM Forum data, globally, only about 25% of the telcos have the required tools and skill sets to start the Gen AI journey. And if you augment this conversation, my favorite mic, yeah. Something with my yeah. So if you further augment this conversation from production into reality, from POC to reality, and the number of use cases being say around 10, right? This number drops to 14% globally, right? So the challenge is prevalent. When you move into any such wave, right, the big waves which come in 4G, 5G, Gen AI, I think fundamentally there is a reorientation any organization needs to go through. It's people, process, and technology, right? On a broader context, I think we can always call upon data quality issues, we can always talk upon skill issues, we can talk about regulatory concerns, we can talk about how do you integrate these systems with legacy, because everything is not at where we want it to be, right? We need to upgrade, modernize things. But fundamentally, I think from our perspective as Red Hat, I think in our conversations, what we've seen with our customers, one of the things that is very prevalent is of because of the I think you called upon the FOMO piece, right? So everybody wants a bite of it, and the first thing they do is they look at one vendor, right? And this leads into something we believe is kind of an AI lock-in, right? We all are talking about democratizing AI. Red Hat has been fundamentally the proponent of open source, and open source principles are based on democratizing. We've done it in the past. If you look at telecom networks today versus how they were traditionally designed in the 2G era and 3G era, today the telecom networks are not limited to one vendor supplying all. Today the networks are disaggregated with the power of choice. So the people who are sitting here effectively are working together to provide them services so that they can have a seamless experience and not be logged in, right? So one of the things that we believe is that the value chain, the Gen AI value chain, needs to undergo a similar process. While the standards will kind of mature, are in progress, our approach and our principal advocacy is around at least standardize your internal processes, right? Standardize your internal technologies, because while you build your strategy, you should be in future able to have the power of choice on use cases, on vendors, on technology, on hardware, on chipset, right? All of these coming together and providing these use cases to the customer. I think that's where we kind of believe it should be looked upon. The other aspect is about operationalizing this, right? So whenever you're looking at a strategy today, you're looking at something which is more so, in a fixated place. When this becomes a strategy from the core to the edge and cloud and so on and so forth, how will you address the matter of scalability? How will you look at designing something which could be used both on premise, or it could be with partners which are beyond just one of your hyperscalers, right? So it's something we call as multi-hybrid cloud. So operationalizing this, with this entire ecosystem in place is something which we believe fundamentally should be looked upon by everybody today. While we obviously don't want to miss the bus, we want to make a noise in the market because it's fundamentally believed that if you say AI 5 times in any forum, your stock price usually goes up. Okay, so typically we all are talking about it, but we want to look at it from that perspective. And what we are doing with the community is we're building platforms which are open in nature. We are inheriting partners, onboarding them to make sure that they work with us along with industry bodies and provide it to the customers. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think these are the critical insights on operationalizing. But maybe I think Himanshu would be good to have your perspective also. How HPE's HPE's view on operationalizing Gen AI for your customers.
I would first want to thank Abhishek because he covered majorly all the areas my answer would have touched. So in a way, he has laid the background in terms of the challenges and how to approach those challenges. Now, if I were to look at the market, and it's very important, right? More than $1 trillion have gone into Gen AI in the last, maybe 2+ years. What are the returns? It's hardly $30 billion. Can it sustain? Answer is no. Just by building large language models wherein you put in 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 GPUs, and now Elon Musk is preparing this, one of the models, I think it's already delivered in some 20 days, 19 days. He put in 1 lakh GPUs and along with NVIDIA founder, they got it up and running in maybe 19 days time. This is one of the videos I saw. It was mind boggling. The type of infrastructure it was put, the type of network deployment, the type of end-to-end sustainability requirements. So point is, this is not going to still remain at the LLM level. It will come to, small LLMs. It will come to edge AI, which means you will have devices running all these so-called small large language models or small language models, right? Like the way you can today access the chat GPT, which is available on the cloud using your devices. So there's a huge transition which is going to happen. The money will come from leveraging these LLMs, which means everybody starts to start using it, which means inferencing. So in the LLM technology, you have parlance basically talk about building an LLM, you talk about fine-tuning the LLM, or third is about inferencing or productizing it, how to use it. The way he could possibly tell a Baba how to leverage the LLM, then the devices have to be that much ready with those inference modules. Now, what we have done, we have tried to simplify it. So all the areas he talked about in terms of challenges, regulatory, data challenges, data governance, transparency in the entire ecosystem, regulations, governance, all this we have tried to simplify by actually launching something called as HPE Private Cloud AI. Now it's a product, it's a peace of mind turnkey solution which can help you travel your AI journey from the start to the end. When I say start to the end, purely from say fine-tuning a model or leveraging a model for inference, not training those high-end large language models because they will require really a lot of thorough custom approach from the biggest of the players in the ecosystem partners, including the LLM providers and the partners like us. But when it comes to leveraging it, we have the turnkey solution, which means we can make your life very, very simple, starting from deciding whether you want to build or you want to buy or you want to fine-tune a model. We provide the consulting services, advisory services, also on the software side. So the partnership is one of the ecosystem providers like NVIDIA, and we give you NVIDIA AI Enterprise along with it, with their NIM inference modules, part of that package. And we also bring HP AI Essentials, which are curated models available with complete support from HP itself. So we build the services, we'll give you consultancy, we'll help you deploy it. And our infrastructure, as you know, is one of the best in the world. We have experience of running high performance computing for last 3 decades. We acquired companies like Cray and SGI in the last 5 years. So we have the top league. In fact, the top 2 supercomputers in the world are from HP. Now, with that level of understanding on infrastructure, which he also touched, and the understanding of the platform, we are giving something which is a turnkey solution. You can quickly deploy models. They can get guidance from us. At the same time, we'll give you ability to consume it the way you want it. because there's a huge amount of risk involved in terms of money being put in this. It's not easy. It's at least few $1 million normally people start with. In fine tuning, maybe it will be lesser. Inferencing, it will still maybe lesser. But there's huge amount of money, and there is a CEO level office directive to literally see that the project is successful. So we're trying to simplify it. At the same time, we are trying to help you consume it as a service. So there is something called HP GreenLake Private Cloud AI. So the GreenLake piece is the one which can help you consume this under a platform where you will have a cloud-like experience managing all of this, the compute, the storage, the networks, and the entire ecosystem. So that's where the power of one comes here, and our ability to even go into deeper into domain understanding. So we have tied up with the so-called system integrators, global ones like HCL, Wipro, TCS, Deloitte. All those partners, along with them, we will have the domain expertise, the infrastructure, services, all coming together. So anybody having any requirement in the future, we are more than happy to come and engage. That's how it is. Sorry for a long answer, but I think it's important that you get a perspective where the money will lie. It will be in inferencing services.
Thanks, Himanshu. I think some of the panelists talked about, and Himanshu, you also talked about build versus buy decision. So maybe Rakesh, your perspective on how does one decide on that, and what role does partnership play in that?
So I think Anand talked about that they're using Copilot. So I think one of the things they should definitely encourage is use indigenous and India developed applications rather than. So I'm trying to wearing a selling hat here. But I think rather than increasing the stock price of market of Microsoft, they should try and use some of the Indian companies. But I think partnerships definitely play a very important role. And, of course, LLMs is all about, large language. Just the name itself requires, a lot of play with the cloud providers. I mean, we've heard about a lot of programs which AWS, Azure and Google Cloud, the large cloud providers or hyperscalers provide. I will definitely latch on to you as well for the HP partnership as well. We would definitely be interested. Okay. And so we, obviously do, I mean, there are a lot of programs, credits and so on. And also, I still have to experience this, but they have a marketplace which helps you, from the Indian companies, sell into markets where you don't have a direct sales presence. So definitely that's there. I think we talked about edge devices. So before this panel, we had, all those folks from AMD and some of the other chipset manufacturers. That's another part of ecosystem which has to work in making Gen AI successful. Edge AI is extremely important as well. I mean, you know how Meta is split into WhatsApp, and it is very much there with all of us. I don't know how much of all of us use, but it definitely is there, and I'm sure they will find a way to monetize this. Then I think it's nobody's reinventing the wheel here. So everybody's kind of building on what others, and not only in India but across the globe, have actually built upon. And these are transcription models, these are large language models which one can use depending on the use case. So there's a big ecosystem in place. We have to just uncover it, and we are amazed at how the innovation is taking place across the globe and how it is visible to the world as well. So that's what amazes me every day.
I think it's a true example of power of everybody coming together and creating that ecosystem. Moving on, Karthik, since yesterday we've heard Honorable Prime Minister, MOC, Honorable MOSC, I think there's a big focus on Digital Bharat. And is there a way we can kind of leverage and bring together the power of such big companies on the dais today to kind of come together and find solutions through Gen AI for creating Digital Bharat a reality?
The answer is yes, but should it be so early, so quickly, and at the government level? It's really scary. Also, they will have to look at the other phases, right? Not just consumer-centric. How effective can the government be with their own departments and various others, right? And we have various players in India who can come out with larger solutions, right? Some of them are Digi, Yatra and so on, right? So, but they do not store any data in their servers, right? There are privacy issues and so on. So when it comes to government scale, it's lot many challenges currently. There could be issue on data hacking and regulatory something which they'll need to focus on and internally. So at this point in time, it's very difficult to come out with their own version out of it. But yes, they can have partial ways to how they can use these for their internal systems. But when it comes to consumer-centric applications or devices or applications, I think it would take some more time.
Any different take on this? Anything from your end, Milind? Your views on this? On how can Gen AI be used for Digital Bharat?
No, I mean, I do echo what was said here, but more importantly, look at the latest innovations that have happened. Right, when you talk about Digital Bharat, one of the biggest, I mean, real innovation that has happened in the space of digital is UPI. Right, so many innovations are around, but UPI is something that I consider as a genuine innovation. The second genuine innovation that has happened in the space of digitizing Bharat is quick commerce. Right now, both of these are so customer centric and so specific to a customer. The amount of data that gets generated, the amount of, and I spoke about the example that I gave in the previous question when you came to me about personalization, right? How can that be done specifically is one angle of how do you leverage data for customer. The second is look at the capability generative AI today has to create documents, to create basically training materials, right? And therefore bridging the skill gap. Now, Digital Bharat will not happen simply by putting fantastic technology platforms like a UPI, but also people should be made aware of how to use that UPI, right? So skill gap management is going to be a big play, and generative AI is definitely going to help that. I mean, there are governments today that are talking, state governments who are talking about launching generative AI programs for a lot of people en masse, right? It is not for on one or two prestigious classes of the economy, but en masse. I mean, for everybody, they are planning to launch some programs like this. How will the content be generated there, right? I mean, generative AI is available. You give it a prompt, it can write a content, it can create a module, it can create courses. I mean, the other day I was looking at a video from one of the generative AI providers, solution providers, where he drew something called as a marketing funnel, customer marketing funnel. That it was a drawing that was done. The drawing was uploaded to the platform and then said, create a training program. And it created a training program, not only a training program with slides, it also created a virtual speaker, a virtual audio and a video speaker. And just from an image, it created a 45-minute training program on what is a customer marketing funnel, right? From top of the line, mid funnel, bottom, everything covered, right? So that is the power of generative AI today. So A, yes, customers. B, skill gap. So skill management, I mean, India digital is going to only happen on the back of each one of us. If it is generative AI, each one of us having generative AI on our devices. You like ChatGPT, you take ChatGPT. You like llamas, you take llamas. You like Google Notebooks. I mean, I don't know if you have seen. I mean, there is a possibility to create a podcast, right? This whole session itself could have been done generative AI, right? That's the power of it. And once you do that, you cascade it. I mean, everybody today at the grassroots level also has a smartphone, has access to the internet. That's the beauty of our country. Internet is cheap, unlike any other countries. So if you have internet, if you have 5G, now being cascaded everywhere, generative AI is going to be on the fingertips for everybody. Get the skill gap sorted. That's the way to go to Digital Bharat. Yeah.
Great. Maybe just last supplement. How do you, while you talked about AI, Gen AI plugging that skill gap, how does the nation plan for creating Gen AI skill sets? And create a pipeline of talent that can kind of enable some of this mass adoption that we're talking about.
Yeah, the short answer, I mean, there are broadly two universes where the skill gap needs to be addressed or created as a skill pipeline. One is corporates, right? Every corporate today is now establishing generative AI programs. I mean, my corporate, I mean, everybody of us in Accenture is getting trained on generative AI. At least we can talk generative AI. So one part is that, which is corporates. The second part is universities, schools, curriculums, right? My daughter is in grade 7 now. She's talking about generative AI, right? That is the power that gets addressed. So skill gap is only something that can be addressed through creating programs, creating curriculum that can be cascaded. And therefore, when you start building the skill pipeline, you need to, the definition that needs to be put in place is what skills are we really talking about? There are data engineers, there are data scientists, there are prompt engineers, there are cloud architects, there are infra architects. All of these are individual skills that will be needed. And that skill gap, depending upon wherever somebody likes being a prompt engineer, he chooses that and gets trained onto those kind of curriculum. So training and identifying what skills really are required is the way forward.
Thank you so much. Brilliant. I think we've almost come to the top of the hour, so maybe we'll conclude this session. First, thank you everyone for your valuable insights. I think really genuine, practical insights on GenAI deployment. Clearly, GenAI is transformative. We're seeing practical use cases being deployed from customer experience to network deployment. But I think it is going through an adoption curve, and I think it's important to get this ecosystem of service providers, tech providers, platformization, all of those components need to kind of come together to create Gen AI adoption at scale a possibility. So with that, thank you so much everyone for your time. Thank you panelists for your insights.